Step up and be a proper daughter-in-law. Care for your husband and in-laws, not for your parents. Really? As a daughter-in-law, do I really have to sever all connections with the parents who raised me? That doesn't make sense. I'm going to shake up that outdated mindset. My name is Julie. I'm a 56-year-old woman, recently horrified by the sight of deep laugh lines appearing. Maybe it's because I've been slacking off with my facial expressions under the mask for almost 1 year. I remember venting my stress by making exaggerated faces under my mask when an annoying colleague made snide remarks. Maybe that was the cause. I need to make sure not to forget to put on my mask and accidentally show my irate face to my colleagues. Back in my 20s, when I didn't have any laugh lines or wrinkles on my forehead, I married my husband Frank, who is 3 years older than me, and gave birth to our daughter, Abby. With the pregnancy and birth, my environment changed drastically. Frank, who was a kind man, started to spout possessive lover-like phrases like, "Who's more important to you, me or our child?" He seemed to dislike when I comforted our daughter when she cried during his mealtime, or when I devoted all my time at night to Abby. If he feels that way, I wish he would help more with childcare, but he shows no signs of doing so. Instead, Frank suggested, or rather decided, that we should live with his mother, saying, "If mom helps with childcare, it'll lighten your load." His mother was somewhat troublesome since the pregnancy. She had always been overbearing with Frank. Frank was often summoned to his parents' house after work, and she frequently contacted him, even without any significant matter to discuss. But she did it only for Frank. She didn't interfere with me in particular. But, suddenly after the pregnancy announcement, she began to interfere with me as well, saying things like, "Come over at least 2 or 3 times a week. I'm worried about you, Julie." There's no way I was going to travel the distance to her home that required a train ride that frequently while pregnant. I had been avoiding her invitations by any means possible, but then another adversary appeared. "Why won't you visit when mom's worried about you? Why don't you understand that she's worried about you?" Frank started blaming me. When I responded, "Then, when you have the flu, you'll visit my parents' house, right? If I say my parents are worried, you'll go, right?" Frank became silent, and somehow I was able to avoid visiting during my pregnancy. But the real hardship began after giving birth. Frank's mother would constantly contact me with various demands, such as wanting to be the one to give Abby her first bath or wanting to supervise when I breastfeed Abby. Even from a distance, it was tough dealing with her, but now she wanted us to live together. The idea of living with Frank's mother, who often has quite unreasonable demands, brings nothing but despair. However, the day after I firmly stated, absolutely no, Frank's mother and father arrived at our house with their suitcases. The start of hell. Living together has increased the hardship. Frank's mother often tries to give Abby sweets and juice that she hasn't eaten before. I'm always cautious about allergies. Giving my child new foods little by little, it's a cardinal rule. However, there were times when she tried to let my baby daughter taste honey, even though she's still too young for it. Despite asking my mother-in-law to stop, she'd burst into tears, accusing me of disliking her. I felt like I was on the brink of a nervous breakdown. My father-in-law also critiqued my parenting, saying, "Julie, your way of raising Abby is pitiful. She'll end up becoming a criminal." He utterly disregarded my childcare methods. What I'm saying is bad is all generally known stuff that's written as bad in parenting guidebooks. By his logic, America would be a crime-ridden country. Yet, he isn't the type to back down just because it's written in the guidebook. If I say such things, he would only yell at me, "Don't argue back. You lack awareness as a wife of my son. You've already married into this family, you should listen to what your parents-in-law say." I do retaliate from time to time, but it's impossible to win when our conversations hardly make sense. All I get is a flat denial of my entire personhood. I felt like I was going mad. Then one day, an incident occurred. My mother-in-law said, "I bought a pacifier," and tried to force my daughter to take it. The moment she shoved the pacifier at my daughter, making her cry, my father-in-law declared, "Here, let me show you how it's done. You don't know how to use it, do you?" and casually put the pacifier in his own mouth, attempting to give it back to my daughter afterwards. Yikes. I stopped him in a hurry, saying, "Please stop. There's also the risk of cavities." The concern about cavities was genuine, but I was simply disgusted. However, my father-in-law seemed not to understand why I was upset, and started to snap back at me, saying, again, "Then what can I do with my grandchild? When things get to this point, it's out of control. My mother-in-law started to cry, saying, I wanted my eldest son's wife to have a boy who will be an heir, but I'm tolerating it because she's my granddaughter and I want to love her. As for father-in-law, he started yelling, I wanted to build a duplex right after you got married, but I decided to live here with you guys because I thought it would be tough for you. They are completely unaware of how absurd their statements are. They are craziest parents-in-law. I envy the other mothers-in-law who have daughters-in-law who aren't mean to their mothers-in-law. You're all right. Julie should be more conscious of appreciating us. Here we go again. I'm so fed up. My husband, the root of all this chaos, hardly comes home as he finds his parents troublesome, and spends every night out drinking with his colleagues and friends. I don't have the luxury of voicing my complaints or the energy to run away from home. I'm just struggling with raising my daughter and dealing with my eccentric parents-in-law. However, due to this incident, my mother-in-law began to spread all kinds of rumors about me in the neighborhood and among relatives. I was truly shocked when I received a message from my sister-in-law one day, asking, Mom said you did something to Abby and she has a bruise on her bottom, is that true? Yes, her bottom is blue right now, but it's just Mongolian spots. There's nothing else. However, this is not the first time this has happened. My mother-in-law has a tendency to inflate stories from bits and pieces she's noticed, painting me as the bad wife in the neighborhood. I've been told by neighbors, I know there's a lot going on, but you shouldn't pinch your mother-in-law, and other lies. Of course, I haven't done such a thing. The rumors about me seem to have reached my husband, who's been mostly absent. One day, he suddenly blew up at me. What's going on here? Huh? What are you on about all of a sudden? Apparently, you were mad when Mom held Abby. If she's going to throw a toddler who's just started walking towards the ceiling while playing up, up and away, of course, I got upset. You just had to catch her. Are you serious right now? So, you have a problem? A big one. What's with this attitude? You don't take care of Abby. You push all matters related to your mother and father onto me. You don't do the housework too. Who do you think is managing this house? It's me. I always say that they'll take care of Abby and you should rest. I told you, I can't rest because I can't leave her with them with confidence. Enough. I don't want to know. With that, Frank, my husband, slammed the door and left the room. I was left behind, with a big problem on my hands. Later that night. What? An accident. Okay, got it. I'll be there right away. I received a sudden call from my mother. She told me that my parents had a car accident. They were safe, but they had to undergo some tests because of their age. The word accident sent a chill down my spine. I was shocked. Seeing my distress, Frank asked, What's wrong? Mom and Dad had a car accident. They are going through tests, and I am worried. Can I take Abby and go to the hospital? What? Frank and his parents looked at me as if I were saying something absurd. If they're not dead, you don't need to go. What? I couldn't believe what my mother-in-law said. Instead of that, look. Dinner is not ready yet. Hurry up and do the housework. You have a husband and family to care for. You lack awareness. Stop relying on others. For some reason, there was applause from Frank and his dad. Hurry up and prepare the dinner. If you have a problem with what Mom says, we'll get a divorce. Frank had a smug grin on his face as if he was trying to assert his dominance. Divorce? Is that their ace in the hole? How naive can they be? But I probably don't need to argue anymore. They themselves are suggesting a divorce. All right, I understand. Here you go. I pulled out a paper from a drawer and handed it to Frank. His eyes widened as he looked at me and the paper alternately. What's this? Just as you wished, I am divorcing you. I've had enough of living in this mess. I've been in contact with a lawyer and got this application for divorce. Frank's parents, who were trying to peek at the paper, what they gasped. Julie Smith. Divorce is not something you do so easily. She called me by my full name in front of the certificate. I knew you were a hard-hearted woman, but if you're this stubborn, no one will love you. My father-in-law also started his irrelevant sermon. It was your son who mentioned divorce so casually. I'm absolutely going to the hospital to see my parents, I said. Then leave Abby here. She's our granddaughter, shouted my mother-in-law. No, I gave birth to her, I won't. Leaving her with you all would shorten her life. If I knew you were going to be such a horrible daughter-in-law, I would never have let my son marry you. You'll taint Abby too, being a mother like you. Ah, here we go again. Even when I saw my mother-in-law start to cry, all I could think was, How impressive it is that she can retain so much water to cry. You're the one who said it. I'll leave it up to the lawyer. As I pressed my husband, he turned pale for a moment, but he agreed with turning the application in. You thought I was going to hold you back, huh? Too bad. If you apologize now, I might forgive you. Come on, if you're going to apologize, do it now. Submit it if you have enough brave to do that. Why? Why should I apologize? There's no way I'm coming back. I snatched the divorce application from my husband, simply said, goodbye, and left the house. I can buy everything else again. I should hurry to the hospital and cut ties with this household. That's what I thought. I quickly dropped it into the postbox and hurried to my parents. The test results showed that my parents were fine. I felt relieved. While talking to my mom, I heard a voice from the back. You came, Julie? Catherine, are you okay? I'm sorry, it's because of my father's driving. No, it's okay. They really saved me when they found me feeling faint on the road. I'm fine, no injuries or anything. Catherine, my sister-in-law, smiled as she spoke. Actually, Catherine was also in the car when my parents had the accident. Catherine's house and my parents' house are very close, and they have been friendly neighbors since before I married Frank. This time, on their way to the grocery store, my parents found Catherine fainting from anemia on the road, and the accident happened on the way to the hospital. By the way, neither my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, nor Frank knows that Catherine and my parents are neighbors. Catherine has been hiding her address from her mother since she got married. As the eldest daughter, Catherine had been subjected to more interference from her mother than Frank had. Frustrated, Catherine told her, I'm married now, and I'm moving out. Please don't interfere anymore. And I won't tell you my address. But apparently, her mother said, well, I'll come along for a private view then. It's quite a scary story. Eventually, they compromised that Catherine would participate in family events but wouldn't reveal her address. Even now, her mother is still dissatisfied with this. Given this background, Catherine has been very worried about me, and since my mother-in-law started insisting that my daughter's birthmark was a curse, she's been pushing me, saying, why don't you get a divorce? I know it might be scary, but you, Julie, can manage it. I'll support you. Even for Catherine, it was unexpected that Frank would turn out to be more like his mother. So she kept telling me, Frank seems to take after his mother, and with their support, he's going to continue flaunting his power as the eldest son and husband. It'd be better for you to leave. Thanks to her words, I was able to calm down and realize that although becoming a single mother would be scary, it would be better for my daughter, and that's how I ended up visiting the lawyer. But, Julie, are you sure you're okay coming here at this hour? Your in-laws didn't say anything? Well, actually. While I was laughing nervously and trying to play it off, I casually told Catherine and my mom the whole story. After hearing everything, Catherine let out a big sigh, clearly frustrated, and my mom looked pale, saying, so, you've been through all that. Well, needless to say, I felt a bit relieved, knowing that I wasn't the one who was out of line, but it was them. Just then, my cell phone rang. I hastily pulled out my phone, panicked that I had forgotten to switch it off in the hospital, only to see my mother-in-law's name displayed on the incoming call. Seeing that, Catherine, my sister-in-law, let out a small gasp before I could react. Catherine's trauma towards her parents seemed deep-rooted. As I ignored the call, text messages began to pour in one after another. I want to bathe Abby. Please come home. We seem to be out of milk. Could you pick some up? It's a shame that you don't appreciate all I've done for you, Julie. It breaks my heart to think I won't see my grandchild anymore. Let's make amends. I forgive you. Please buy the family bucket from KFC that you love so much. The moment we read the messages, everyone in the room was frozen. I wonder what kind of thought process led her to say such things at this point. Or perhaps she doesn't think we're actually getting divorced? Deciding to give her a piece of my mind to stop her from contacting us forever, Catherine and I decided to go confront my in-laws. When we arrived, it was my mother-in-law who first opened the door. Catherine, why are you here? Oh, are you here to celebrate Julie's reconciliation with us? Upon seeing Catherine, my mother-in-law quickly became giddy with excitement, anticipating a party. No way. What do you think you're doing to Julie? That's disrespectful. I'm just trying to teach Julie how to be a good wife to my son. It's simply an unsought advice. You are the meddlesome old woman. At Catherine's pinpoint counter, my mother-in-law fell silent. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's have a party. Come in, come in. I can't enter. I also have in-laws, and according to you, my parents are strangers. Didn't you tell Julie the same? So, I should follow that, shouldn't I? Upon hearing Catherine's words, my mother-in-law turned pale. Catherine also has in-laws. So, if we follow my mother-in-law's absurd theory, Catherine can't join the party as her parents are strangers to her. She is a wife, so Catherine should return home immediately and do the housework. Yes, indeed. It's a waste of time to talk with my mom when I'm busy with housework. At our exchange, my mother-in-law shouted in a loud voice, "Why are you saying such terrible things? I'm done. I'm ending my life right here. Even during my school days, you kept causing a scene at the school gate, saying, 'Don't leave me alone.' I'll end my life here. But look, you're still alive. Stop trying to threaten me with such things, especially when you do nothing." No. As Catherine responded, my mother-in-law became serious and tried to retort, but she was lost for words. Hit the nail on the head, didn't she? But her commotion brought out my father-in-law and Frank from the back. "What are you two doing tormenting your mother?" my father-in-law yelled. Frank, thinking I came back for a reconciliation, looked self-satisfied and smirked, "You came back pretty fast." Gross. Hey. Because of Julie, even Catherine has turned into a bad woman. She's saying she can't even eat a meal with me. Upon hearing that, my father-in-law widened his eyes, glared at us, and said, "Who the hell do you think you are, acting like this when someone is generous enough to forgive you and not insist on a divorce? Actually, when you stopped us from going to the hospital and it led to a divorce, Catherine was in the car with my parents." Wait, what? It's true that I was worried about my own family, but as a sister-in-law, I was also concerned about Catherine, who was in the car with my parents. So, your thinking was to prioritize household chores over Catherine's accident, right? I asked, flashing a smile. The color drained from the faces of my mother and father-in-law. But... We didn't know that Catherine was in the car. You started lecturing me about household chores before I even had a chance to tell you. That was a lie. I had decided not to mention Catherine because they thought they would be asked, "Why was Catherine with your parents?" I also hoped that by leaving all houseworks for a night, Frank and his parents would initiate the divorce. I was worried that if I broached the subject, the conversation wouldn't progress. They, who were considering a divorce, still sent me emails like, "Buy some milk." That's unfair. You can't change the rules halfway through. I'm not sure what's unfair, but everything you said at that time was true, wasn't it? What did I say at that time? My mother-in-law looked bewildered. You told me to think of your own family as strangers when I have in-laws. Here's a comment from Catherine. What? My sister-in-law flashed a smile at my bewildered mother and father-in-law. As I said earlier, I'm also a wife of a man now, so I'm going to cut off all ties with this house. I consider my own family strangers. No way. My mother and father-in-law were lost for words. My husband was also astonished. Coincidentally, I've already decided to move out of this town. I won't be attending family events anymore. This is it. Wait, Catherine. If that's the case, I want to visit your state sometimes. There's no way I'm going to invite you over in this situation. Are you out of your mind? My sister-in-law, who had been unable to assert herself due to her ties to her parents, seemed to have made a decision following my divorce. Well, that's fine, Mom. We still have Julie and Abby. Don't be freaking out too much. That's right. Forget about the ungrateful Catherine. Right, Julie, Abby. My husband and father-in-law said, turning to me with a smile. Are these people stupid? They are a ridiculously dense family. I've already filed for divorce. Unlike Catherine, neither of you is related to me anymore. It's beyond the issue of cutting ties. I've become a complete stranger. What? Don't lie. You can't submit the paper at night. My father-in-law yelled. Well, I just dropped into the post box. It will take some time to be received, but I have no intention of retracting my application, so it's a divorce. Julie, weren't you in love with me? My husband also raised his voice. A husband who says heavy stuff like, who do you care about more, me or our child? I've lost my feelings for you long ago. The only thing that made me hesitate about the divorce was whether it was right to take a father away from Abby. Then, for Abby's sake, we should try again. Try again? That's a word you use when there's even a tiny chance of reconciliation. How are we going to try again when my feelings for you are completely crushed? Right now, all I can think is that you're saying something disgusting. Whether he heard my final words or not, my husband bit his lip with tear-filled, red eyes. You are such a mama's boy. I started to say, but kept it a secret. After that, the divorce was finalized without a hitch, and I changed all my phone numbers and email addresses. However, it seems they asked a mutual acquaintance for our contact information, and once again, I started receiving messages from my ex-husband and his mother. What a dysfunctional family, truly. From his mother, I received a message saying, "Isn't it about time for Abby to see her grandma?" From my ex-husband, I received something along the lines of, "I'm always here for you," which was as creepy as it sounds. Needless to say, I promptly blocked them. But it didn't end there. Around the time Abby started elementary school, it seems they hired a private investigator. There was a time when my ex-husband and his parents ambushed us in front of our house. "If you're still single, I'll give it another shot," my ex-husband had the audacity to say. His parents told me, "We've always considered you a part of our family, even after the divorce," which was quite frightening. I immediately threatened to get the police involved. They finally seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, and I haven't heard from them since. I still have a relationship with Catherine, but she's been stalked by a private investigator too. Shockingly, her mother once tried to pick up Catherine's child from daycare pretending not to know anything. This also ended up involving the police, and bad rumors spread in the neighborhood. The entire family moved somewhere else. Thanks to this, peace returned to Abby and me. That family with their heads in the clouds, only thinking about themselves. I hope they live out their lives quietly without causing trouble for others. It's been nearly 30 years since that commotion. Now, Abby is married to her childhood friend, and they recently had a baby. I was worried that Julie might follow in my footsteps. But since they were young, their parents have been very kind to her, and they've established a good relationship. More importantly, despite the prejudice against single-parent families back then, they never held any bias and let their children play together, which speaks volumes about the quality of their family. I don't think I have to worry. I've been taking turns with their family in taking care of my grandchild, and I'm completely smitten with the adorable and honest little girl. She even wears the clothes I make for her, and I adore her so much it feels like my heart could burst. Maybe even wear a miniskirt and show off a bit. Just kidding, I wouldn't really do that. But this year, I do plan to put a bit more effort into dressing up. I've been so caught up in life that I haven't taken care of myself. Here's to enjoying life with a youthful spirit.